All righty, what's going on, everyone? Macro Perspective Piece. Marcos and I here have a great pod with Miguel Felix in the house. Miguel, he and I got connected uh, in a fitness event. We did a health and wellness event earlier this year with a great buddy of ours, AJ. We were doing a bunch of things: red light therapy, cold therapy, breath work. We were doing sound healing and kind of doing some more mindfulness and spirituality things, as well as just talking about general health and that. And then we got to link up again recently, but more of a hangout. And, I was like, Miguel, we got to finally do this podcast. Miguel, you also have your own podcast called Good Demand, where you've had extensively great guests on. I can name a few, like Troy Casey or these folks talking about spirituality, health, and just kind of what's going on. Um, but Miguel, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? A little elevator pitch of yourself, like how you got into the industry, what made you so passionate about it, what are some things you're working on, and yeah, man.
Yeah, I think for me, it started very slow. Even as a kid, just with exercising. My uncle was a big marathon runner and weightlifter, and then as a little kid, you kind of admire your uncles and just jumped in. He'd always have a gym at his house, and I'd always be over there with my grandma, exercising, fucking around, and having a good time on the squat rack. And little by little, you pick up a little bit of information, and it was really bodybuilder information for the most part. A lot of Flex magazine, Muscle and Fitness magazine, which other magazines were big during that time, Men's Health magazine, and I would just pick those up and read and think that was like the gospel. And then little by little, like getting into biology in high school and picking up medical textbooks and nursing textbooks, and little by little just kind of falling in love with health and the human body. And then I wanted and started to dedicate myself to become a physician. And then little by little started to understand that in the modern day, being a doctor is more about, unfortunately, peddling pharmaceutical drugs and the business side of health care, which is not really health care. It's more of a sickness management system. So I decided to go more on the holistic health route, and I followed that pursuit through the Czech Institute. I was the youngest to go through the lower division, HLC 1 and HLC 2 in the Czech Institute at 19 years old. I did those with Paul Czech.
The
And,
GOAT.
yeah, bro, he's the fucking GOAT. He's a man, godfather of holistic health. And dude, fell in love with the people there, especially at 19, dude. Like having my values, I felt so isolated. Using my very first scholarship to pay for these seminars, these 4 to 5 day seminars, I would travel to them alone at 19 and just be surrounded by people who also carried glass water bottles and brought their own food containers. And I felt fucking right at home and instantly just fell in love with community, fucking holistic health people, as well as, biohackers and whatnot. And it's a passion, and it could be a little bit more of a unhealthy passion too. Health can be an unhealthy passion. You could ask any of my ex-girlfriends. I have, red lights all over this house. I got the oxygen machine in my room. I got too many toys and
They
gadgets.
just can't hang. They just can't hang.
It just, one can hang, and she's been around the longest. So that's what's, she's also a Czechie. So that's been really cool.
That helps a lot too.
Yeah. But that's just been my story, man. And, I think health being more of not only like being a health enthusiast, but slowly being a health advocate, because, we're being fucking lied to, we're being scammed, and we're being gaslit on a professional level and an unprofessional level on social media. Professional level, doctors, the government; unprofessional level, social media and fake gurus. So I'm not here to tell people what to do. I want to help people and help myself through the bullshit and just figure out what's truth and not be stuck to any ideology. And that's kind of what I'm doing, man.
Well said.
Ooh. Is this an episode that will get canceled if we like start
No, no
talking about
Yeah,
way.
this.
Not
absolutely.
not in this regime. Also, I'll tell you this, though, Miguel. I think one of the things that I'll say this, and Marcos could kind of go on this is Marcos and I are going through that as well, is kind of navigating the BS of the world. Like we're both in that clinical care setting, right? Because we did want to get away from the sick care management. Like I grew up on getting injured and having an autoimmune disorder, and I had to go to Kaiser all the time and manage these things. And Kaiser is sick care. Now they're getting better at preventative, but working for a model like Synergenics, where it's like, no, we're talking about optimization and wellness, but we're also working with pharmaceuticals and the holistic approach and blending the two together, not being so married to one or the two, but being able to bridge the gaps, the positives of the two, because there are things there that you're talking about where it's like, look, are doctors not necessarily trained on all these things? Across the board for a long time, doctors weren't. There are better doctors now, though. There are
Yeah.
doctors that are getting better. There are doctors that are trained in longevity and precision medicine. So we can't give that blanket statement because everybody's, their people are getting credentialed. Is nutrition finally making its way in as a treatment for disease? Is exercise is doing? We've been doing that. But that model wasn't there for a long time, and I think people are finally speaking. What are your thoughts on that, Marcos?
Yeah, yeah, right. Like healthcare, sick care, longevity care. I mean, this whole the whole system needs to be kind of turned up on its head. You know, the insurance based model stuff has been something that, like, again, now that I'm aging a little bit more and kind of dealing with it and have kids of my own, like it sucks. It's really a travesty for our generation that has to go through it. And I think it was status quo for so long that people just came to accept it. But I think part of the issue is just like this idea behind socialized healthcare. And I understand that everybody should have access to it, but then who does it fall on to then pay for other people's healthcare and health issues? It's you, it's me, it's our company's premiums, right? And then there's no way to kind of escape it because there is no actual like healthcare or health initiatives being initiated in order for us to see improvements or like lower our rates. But like, why should all of us have to be on the hook for more money out of our pockets in order to then give it to some, like, to a family that again might not qualify for healthcare, right? And I think fundamentally this is like part of the biggest issue and why everybody's up in arms currently after the election is like we're stripping away quote unquote fundamental rights, right? I mean, it's such a hard and not black and white problem, and at the end of the day, like it I don't know if the solution really is everybody getting on the same page or getting that. We could just look up north of Canada and then how many Canadian patients that come through our doors, right, Seamus, that tell us like socialized medicine doesn't work, where I need to seek out private care because it's taking me 9 months to see my PCP. So you better come in and schedule for next year because you're not going to see me unless you've already done that, right? There's a lot of concern with it for me personally. So again, like when Miguel, you're like, I really want to talk about like make America healthy again type of initiative, RFK. I was like, this is really kind of a perfect topic post, big event of the election. And honestly, I think it's an interesting thing because you said you had some kind of critical bullet points and things that you like to bring up to the table. And I'm like super curious and interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, yes, 100%. So, make America healthy again. I was first going to stick with my vote for Robert F. Kennedy, and obviously he seceded. He wasn't going to win as an independent. That is another part of the system that is kind of broken, the fact that we have a duopoly in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And, he suffered that, and he fucking probably fought the hardest I've ever seen as an independent candidate. But I wanted him to win because of the corruption in all of the executive branches of government. And just to list out these, if people don't know, the presidency is also called the executive branch. And under the executive branch, there's a part of it called the Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS. And you really won't hear that acronym very often because it's the umbrella term. Under that umbrella term, you have the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, the CMS, which is the Center for Medicare Medicaid Services. You have the ACF, which is the Administration of Children and Family. You have the EPA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. You have the USDA, which we all know, like USDA Organic, the United States Department of Agriculture. You have the Department of Energy, and then you also have the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. So these are all these departments are under the executive branch, which the president is supposed to appoint people and has control over. So now that Donald Trump has officially been president elect for 2025 through 2029, and if he's actually going to work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and give him the ability to infiltrate and clean up all of these departments, because again, they're all under the executive branch. They're not a part of Congress or the judicial branch. So he could actually finally make fundamental change that could completely flip this country within literally probably a year or two, just by tightening up the regulation and stopping the corruption and literally the constant bullshit that is peddled by unfortunately, just businesses that don't want to pay more money or want to take shortcuts or want to profit or have a bigger upper hand on their competitors. Did you guys know all those were under that? Just wanted to test the temperature here.
No, I mean, I've heard of all of them. I didn't
Yeah.
know they all fell underneath the executive branch, because it's what, executive, legislative, and
Judicial.
Supreme Court, judicial, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what powers fell into what, because I think, even for me, like, again, like, I feel like I'm still kind of a lay person when it comes to understanding like politics in general. Like, this is probably the first election cycle I've really started paying more attention to things, because, and again, more like at like the state level, like things that I can actually like make a difference with is like voting on that. Didn't feel like I really had much power. Hell, I told you as we came on here, Nevada still hasn't truly finalized our votes.
You're taking a minute, bro.
I was so mad at Nevada. It was blue for the longest. I was like, bro, what the fuck? I'm never going back to Vegas.
Yeah, and so that, I mean, therein lies the problem. I told Seamus yesterday, I was like, dude, if you look at the total number of votes, I mean, 15 million votes have not happened from this election, from the previous election, which is kind of like a shocking figure. I mean, you don't just lose 10% of like something, it just disappear out of thin air. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but makes me kind of wonder and question, again, going back to like the claims of Donald Trump, right? Like, again, the math doesn't math, right? I'm a numbers guy, man. Like, I'm sorry, the math doesn't math. And if you look historically, I was like, well, look at 2016. The numbers, they fluctuated a little bit more from 2016 to now, but they were within like a margin of like error in my eyes, right? Like 1-2%. But then to see that like stark number difference, I was a little like, oh, maybe he does actually have a case. Maybe we should have paid more attention as he's screaming from the rooftops, kind of thing. And again, it's just, I mean, like you just said, the corruption of other government organizations and then bylaws and laws that get passed as a result of, well, we can maybe just call it big pharma and peptide therapies, right? We'll just use those two because
those are the ones that we talk about the most. And I think to Miguel's point, like, not to step in, but like, I know for sure for the fact, like the FDA got sued, like we were talking about those peptides, right? Like they were sued not because they were, I think you said it the best, is like they were shortcutting. They were not doing their due diligence, right, Marcos?
I don't know if it was a due diligence thing, but they were just trying to go back and kind of like, there weren't any double-blind placebos or placebo-based studies or studies in human trials to like really allow them to kind of allow the utilization of particular peptides like BPC 157, which anecdotally we've heard like it's like basically a miracle peptide. You know, it like really helps people heal after surgeries, dealing with some sort of acute injury. So, I mean, if you keep on hearing that this thing is like working wonders in so many people, I mean, you think that they would have maybe started doing the research, but no, they stripped it and changed the classification of it, and then you no longer get access to it, which again was like kind of fishy to me. I was like, is this the FDA doing its job, quote unquote, because there wasn't anything there? Or is this big pharma trying to find a way to actually profit off of this peptide in the future and get it to now be under some sort of, brand name and patent? And to me, it's just like, stinks to high heavens of like, when there are useful therapies in people and no one's profiting off of it, then in steps somebody that's like, I really want to make profit. And I think that kind of goes back to the beginning, what you were saying, Miguel, is like, everybody wants to just make more and more money, I feel like. And yeah, I mean, again, those different organizations that fall beneath the executive branch, it is kind of, I guess, almost relieving in a sense to kind of hear that like these things can actually be part of that like health plan. And again, I'm actually just here to listen, what you think's going to happen, and kind of your notes a little bit more.
Oh, I'm glad, brother. Look, if RFK and Donald Trump can actually work together, literally all these agencies, I didn't even list the DOJ part because they're the DEA, which have also the Drug Enforcement Administration, which still has marijuana and psilocybin as Scheduled 1 drugs, meaning they're the worst of the worst, and as well as MDMA, which are, you could use marijuana for pain therapy, glaucoma, like all these things, psilocybin for depression, MDMA for depression. So we've had anecdotal evidence that these drugs themselves are also not Scheduled 1 worthy, with heroin and fentanyl and cocaine. Like these are not Schedule 1 worthy drugs. They are potential medicines. However, the DEA has chosen, like, they're not going to do that. Now, does that have to do with Big Pharma and the FDA? Possibly. But since, again, these letter agencies are run by the executive branch, they could be flipped literally on their head by new leadership under RFK or through Donald Trump, which is super exciting. Like everyone on, like, because I follow a lot of these people on like Instagram and whatever, like have the funniest fucking memes of like everyone freaking out. Have you seen, I love The Office when there's a fire in the office and everyone's like, what's the procedure? And they just have like the USDA, the FDA just like trying to freak out because they should be, because RFK literally has basically a PhD in government corruption, and he is the literal Batman to all these motherfuckers in the White House, because it's Gotham City up there, basically. It is. And those people, some of them are freaking evil, and I never believed in evil for a very long time. I thought everybody was just doing their best, and, everyone was good, doing their best. Maybe they made mistakes. But I've come to realize people have either they're good deep down, but they have a very long spell, or very good deep down, but have very long spouts of evil. So we got to be careful, even if they don't mean to. One thing I did want to bring up that you guys may not know, or the audience may not know, is that there's basically this culture of, it's called the revolving door. Have you guys heard of that? Like the revolving door of Big Pharma and the FDA. Have you guys heard of that or not?
Is it people that then leave these high-ranking positions and then move over into a government agency, and they're back and forth in the sense of like whether it's like for more pay over here, as long as you're putting public policy over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. So, and it's not illegal. Like there's like these loopholes that you could fit a hippopotamus through that are supposed to protect you. And I wanted to pull up some actual examples. One of the biggest examples that I found, at least, was there's a ton. Like I can read off all their names. Robert Khalif. This guy worked for the FDA as their commissioner from 2016 to 2017. While before then, he was working for Merck, GSK, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca. So literally he went from pharmaceutical to FDA, and then he went back to pharmaceutical and then back to FDA in 2022. Like literal revolving door. And some of these people that just go from, like there's another guy, and I really don't like this guy, Scott Gibble. He was an FDA commissioner from 2017 to 2019, and then went straight to Pfizer as their board member from 2019 till now. And he also donates to MSNBC. So it's like, it's like you can see the spider web, and it's all, documented. There's a lot of amazing websites that document all these people's footsteps. But what they do is either the pharmaceutical companies that can afford these guys, they let them know that, hey, if you scratch our back, after you're done with this, hobby of serving the people at the Food and Drug Administration, you can get yourself a real nice corporate job, cushy corporate job that's going to pay you like you've never even thought. and you're not even really going to do much. Like, just make sure you keep us happy while you have that silly service job in the government. And when you come with us, we'll take care of you if you take care of us. And that's sometimes what happens. Other times, like in the case of Robert Khalif here, he will come out or go into government, make some moves, get a paycheck from pharmaceutical companies afterwards, come back in, make some more money and moves in government, and then get paid even more when he comes out that second time.
Yeah,
So
that makes a lot of sense.
Wait, can you say the dates again for Khalif? Didn't you say like 2017 to 2018?
So he started working for AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and GSK. And 2009 or 09 to 2013. Okay?
Okay.
So what happens as well with these people is if he started his professional relationship as a pharmaceutical representative or whatever place he took in the pharmaceutical companies, these companies have so much money. They're like, hey, bro, you're going to get promoted. We're going to give you some money to run and to get a government job. And we're going to back you. And we know the right people. And you're gonna get in that office after working for us. And we're going to fund the whole thing. And then he goes into office 2016, 2017, comes back out, works again for the Food and Drug Administration. So it's just like this fucking just constantly revolving door.
So 2016, 2017, who appointed him?
That
would that have been a Trump decision, out of curiosity?
So it's whoever's the lead of the HHS.
Okay. So the HHS then determines who goes into the FDA?
FDA, I think the FDA governs themselves or brings on their own people, but obviously the head of that department, which is the HHS, will have a final say, so that person could influence the FDA. I'm sure each of these agencies have their own little systems running, like if they're like their own little businesses, but they're all part of one big corporation, which is the Department of Human Health Services. And on top of that is the executive branch, which is the sitting president.
Does that mean that Trump appointed the person in the HHS and then that person would have then have had that? Okay.
Trump appointed Fauci.
As the HHS leader? Is that who it was? Or?
I got to check. I completely forgot. No, what was Fauci? Was he a Surgeon General? I'm not too sure.
That's a good question.
Let's look that up.
I'm gonna have to read the book of Real Anthony Fauci.
You could get a copy at Cytogenix Denver.
Oh, I know. I got one.
You do? You do.
Apparently no.
Got it. He's the director of the NIH. Went under.
The NIH. Okay, cool. So let me ask you this, because this is like, I feel like we're gonna go down like a Charlotte's Web here. I want to bring it back. Robert Kennedy, the GOAT, comes in, making America healthy again. What would you say are the policies that he's going to move forward? What do you think he's going to do? I mean, regardless of whatever happened in the past, like what's going to happen now, you think, with the policies moving forward? Like what policies will he impact most?
Yeah, he kind of, he has a lot to lose. Robert Kennedy has the probably biggest legacy names behind Trump, Bush. He's a Kennedy. He's probably the number one legacy name of all time. So when he speaks very carefully. If he ever gets interviewed and gets asked, about him being an anti-vaxxer, he quickly remarks, "I'm not an anti-vaxxer," right? He tries to make sure he iterates that what he sees and what he understands is bad science and bad interpretation of that science as well. So he continuously is reiterating to people in the media, especially, that are trying to get him to expose himself as a fucking nut job. Am I allowed to cuss on here? I've been cussing with this.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. That's just who I am. My bad.
This is not for a PG audience. Don't worry.
Perfect. So when he speaks about anything, he says he wants good science that is interpreted correctly, right? So the policies that he's going to implement, I don't believe are going to be eradication of pharmaceutical drugs or eradication of vaccines or farming practices or
Yeah.
pesticides. I think what he's going to try to do is constitute the ruler by which things are measured as safe and effective, and finding out what is actually safe and effective, and only going with what that science really says.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right now we have, a very, very bad ruler to measure um, everything from medications to farming practices to the soil and how we dig out crude oil or coal. We have bad measuring sticks, and I believe with the legislation that he will put out would be more on the end of gold standard science and forcing pharmaceutical companies, as we say on the topic, and the food industry to go with gold standard science, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that like the USDA is doing is on the advisory board is Joe Salatin, who's like a pioneer in regenerative farming. And that's like regenerative farming is like making sure our food has the right nutrients in it, but making sure the soil is also good as well. So that for me was like epic move. Like, great, that's awesome.
He
That
did that
sounds
recently,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, that was just in the last few days. So
Yeah, fuck, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Like in my world of like holistic health, or in our world of holistic health, you kind of get in these little niches, right? Like Joel Salatin, like, man, I remember watching him, have that little chicken tractor where he like kind of pulls it and he's spinning that. I'm sure you guys seen that, in like his composting methods and all the different agricultural practices, alternative medicine practices, and
yeah,
RFK Jr. is a cornerstone of that community, and having him step foot finally in a spot of power, in a position of power, to enact these what seemed almost fringe or alternative ways of living that should have been way more mainstream,
yeah.
is like a fucking relief. Like, I've never had so much hope, which is I'm gonna try to hold it back in just in case, because I know this world can get fucked up. But like, I've never had so much hope ever in the health of this country.
So RFK was more liberal leaning prior to.
He still is, dude. He's kind of. I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but
yeah. Okay, I'm just curious because I'm like, why do his politics? So if this is the person that like someone on the right would then install, but a lot of these principles and fundamental thinkings and ideas definitely feel more kind of quote crunchy and granola, right? Like very much like peace and love kind of like feels, but like how is it now that we're like seeing this pendulum shift from like, why would the right side? This is a philosophical question, Seamus. I need to say it. Why is it the right side now is like the voice of reason and wanting to utilize what people on the left have been saying for God knows how long? Because I think functional health, I definitely feel like, again, alternative to maybe more conservative views, right? But now we're like, is it this shit has just shifted so far that finally we're just back into the middle, and like it's like fucking common sense to say like, yeah, we should probably look at like life cycles of soil and probiotics that might be inside of the fucking soil. And like, I mean, like all these others. Because back in the day, it was like functional health people would say it's you have leaky gut. And they're like, no. Now the right's like, hey, by the way, it's actually called gut intestinal impermeability or permeability, right? It's like, no. We have the fancy science name now. But because we called it something that wasn't so scientific before, it was just kind of like put off, right?
It's so funny you say this, Marcus. This is where I think how do the science bros say it after like all this scientific stuff was like the bro splits, like they're like, oh, the bros were like, yeah, it took science 20 years to figure it out, but our splits are the best or whatever. Like it's like the same thing with like nutritional sciences and all these things. It's funny. I think from a political standpoint, I think the last few years has opened our eyes to that the average citizen sees probably what's been hijacked on social media, and a lot of it was on one side far too left or far too right. And I think now
wouldn't it make you question it though, Seamus? Like I see things and I've just never taken shit for face value. I feel like Miguel's kind of the same way. Like I want to investigate further. If someone makes some sort of claim, I want to see someone that's refuting it, right? Like again, like you what can you possibly extract in 7 to 15 seconds or 60 seconds? You're not getting enough time to truly pay attention to the nuance of the conversation. And I think that's part of the reason why President Trump ended up winning this election, because he was more on these long form platforms where you can actually get your fucking idea across versus getting cut off.
That's what Andrew Zaragoza posted, was the whole, like, how many things he had, and it was like over this many billion views and all this, and it's like, yeah, I think that makes sense, because it's not about sequestrators anymore. It's not talking points. We need nuance. We need answers. We need ideas, even if they're wrong. And I know that Trump has even said that. He's like, I'm not sure.
He doesn't know. He's everybody. It's impossible to be an expert in everything. But what he was an expert of in this election was getting fucking eyeballs on him. I mean, 1 billion views across whatever platforms he did in the last 2-week stretch. Hello. I mean, again, meanwhile, I'm just listening to conversations, me being the libertarian in the room. I'm like, okay, let's see what the left people are trying to say. All right, cool. What are the right people trying to say? I'm just trying to, put an ear to that and kind of feel that out. And ultimately I was like, interesting. So a lot of people over here are really paying attention to, in my eyes, mainstream media, right? And just having a steady diet of things that that are sound bites. Whereas me, again, person that wants to be informed, I'm listening to both sides. I'm spending hours with these fucking headphones in my ears, my wife getting pissed off at me, literally just trying to absorb both sides. Because I feel like, in all fairness, I need to know why people would feel some type of way on one side and the other. Yeah. And I'm not here making a decision. I would just go off of what I feel like is morally and ethically right, ultimately, right? But I also pay attention to, like, you're going to have a hard time when someone has a masterclass in marketing like Trump to, like, understand, like, he pushed at the time that he needed to, and also got, like, people to back him at the right moments. And it became very evident that strategy was really, I mean, politics have changed. Like that was something I'm listening to today. Politics have changed immensely. It's like a podcasting future where now you need to actually talk about what's actually in these 1,000 pages of fucking legislature. Because guess what? We need to fucking know. And the best thing is you can feed it into GPT and ask it fucking questions. What is in this bill that doesn't really belong? What is actually here in terms of Build Back Better? Right? Or whatever it the Green New Deal or whatever it is. What are things that are slipping in here that my tax dollars are going to, that ultimately, like, again, like, maybe we should find a way to have more of a less of a representative republic like we have now, but find ways to constantly be able to cast votes as citizens. Yeah. Maybe that could be something that eventually comes out. This is just me
with cryptocurrency, that is completely possible, dude. Or with cryptography, I should say. Completely possible that each one of us have one vote constantly every day, be on our iPad or whatever, and constantly read something that should be pretty simple to read and decide, yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. Quick.
Yeah, and it's all documented in the ledger, right? That's the whole idea behind it, right? It can't be, once it's documented, it's there. You can't hack it, supposedly.
Apparently, like, people still find a way to get to them, like the FBI is still rolling on people's streets,
Oh, that's because it's all on the ledger. You can still find where that wallet go, find that IP address, find that fucking operating system, boom, at your door. So it's all on the ledger for that. But I don't want to get too much into crypto.
well, I saw that crypto had an all-time high, like, immediate following you're like,
it was a sale yesterday, bro.
Trying to jump in.
Fire sale yesterday, dude.
Man. But okay, so back to the topic at hand, though. Like, Maha, make America healthy again. Because,
yes, sir.
Again, one, like, all of us here as health coaches ultimately want what's best for people in terms of their longevity and their health, right?
Yeah.
I think we can all agree upon that. Sounds like, Miguel, like, you remind me a lot of Travis, my predecessor of my job, also one of my good friends, and unfortunately lost his life to COVID. But he was, I mean, the dude was not only, like, meticulous when it came to, like, looking a particular way, but also from, like, the health protocols that he would try to utilize. Like, again, glass containers, right? I mean, the way he would deal with reheating things, like, again, more of a pan than a microwave. Dude, when we would travel, like, he wouldn't go through the millimeter wavelength security.
He'd get asked for the
well, there you go. So you embody his spirit all too well.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, again, I asked him that question, how much does this shit matter about these like little nuanced things? He's like, look, again, go with the EWG, right? Environmental Works Group, clean 15, right? Dirty dozen, like start there. You know what I mean? Like he was always really just trying to distill it down to like, again, the easiest thing that you can do to make changes in the beginning. And it's like, then you can get more nuance with like how you're sourcing your meat and all those things in the future. But also, why should we always have to worry about that? Like, shouldn't it just kind of be built in? I mean, I make this statement a lot to particular clients, gets me in a lot of trouble, but I don't give a fuck anymore. Man, what my parents fed me was healthy, right? I'm like, well, let me ask you this question. What'd your parents look like? What's your family look like? And people will sit back and they're like, oh shit, what I was eating or what I thought was eating that was healthy was not healthy because they all have, multiple comorbidity factors, right? They're all maybe obese or overweight, right? They can't do any physical labor or physical tasks, right? And I hate to say that question, but like, I think it's a great way of looking at how you were being brought up and also the foods that you may have been consuming. And again, like, I'm not discrediting parents not being able to, like, may have been the best that they could do at the time, right? But now with all the information that we do have, we need to be making more informed decisions about, again, the quality of the food, but also the quantity, right? To me, that's more of a quantity question when I ask that to people. Like, yeah, but like I've always cooked with butter and oil. It's like, yeah, but do you need an extra 300? It's like, do you realize the butter and oil, like across multiple meals a day, could be your deficit? And all you needed to do is spray your pan with something or just coat it with something that's like a healthy oil that has a high smoke point, et cetera, right? Like, again, like it's interesting. And yeah, so I digress. But what does this look like? Like, what are some of his initiatives that you've been
Well, let me
kind
ask
of
you this,
excited
just to
to
continue
say?
on Marcos. We talked about like regenerative farming and getting the right people in there. What does it look like, as Marcos is talking about families, what does it look like for schools? Like, what does Robert Kennedy say about like schools and like, dude, I remember when they said tomato paste was a vegetable or like a pizza was a vegetable back in the day, bro.
No, they
Come
said it
on,
was a
Miguel.
salad, bro. They said it was a salad.
And Miguel, we're both in Southern California, so like that was,
Yeah,
I was paying with the ticket. I was like, I'm eating my vegetables, baby.
that is fucking hilarious. They had a horrible. I remember growing up. That food pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking Jordan Peterson talks about how evil that food pyramid really is because they knew very well that having excessive amount of carbs could lead to obesity and diabetes, and they went ahead and went with it anyways. Just another. I have corruption on my mind, so that's just another
Hey, if you bring
level.
Jordan Peterson into this conversation, we might have too much justice, a little bit beyond chaos and order. I love my boy JP, but we gotta keep it on the docket here.
No, he's amazing. I don't know exactly about the initiatives that could be possible for children. I do know that have you guys seen the Food Babe? She's been very outspoken with RFK, with Jordan Peterson, and she's right now even petitioning Kellogg's to take out artificial food ingredients out of
Yeah,
their cereals in the United
this is
States because
no.
they have manufacturers here that add these colors and dyes, the red 40s of the world, into the children's cereal in the morning.
I just drank a bunch
Well,
of Gatorade today, dude. God damn.
well, they take them out. Well, they ship them overseas to different countries that don't let them.
Yeah.
So, she's right now actively petitioning Kellogg's.
Do,
That was
do
with
you think those
Callie and
dudes?
Casey Means the other week too. That was
Yeah,
with Callie and
but
Casey Means. Like they went hard on that.
do you guys actually think that the coloring can make that big of a difference in terms of the addictiveness or the metabolic dysfunction of food?
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
at a child level, it is. I mean, all those studies that were linking like autism and other things and like increasing the capacity for it. I think it was like yellow 5 or blue something. But in terms of like
Hmm.
adult, I don't know that data. Um,
Well,
I,
I'm glad you brought up Kelly and Casey Means because they made they're so well spoken, very well spoken people, and when
they're
they
lobbyists, bro.
they're yeah, very well spoken people. They made it very clear when I hear them speak that the tobacco industry,
Mm.
once cracked down on, instantly went to the food industry to make food more addictive. If you ever read the book, I think Salty, Sweet, and Fat, I think it's called, I'm not too sure. But our brains are so primitive, right? We are attracted to color, we're attracted to crunch, we're attracted to sweet, and with the right chemistry, and we're amazing as human beings, and we're so fucking smart, probably for too smart for our own good. But we have the capability of just hacking those fucking perfect taste buds to hit the right neurons to make these foods extremely addictive. And I think we've done that. These foods are no longer foods; they're on the precipice of oral drugs.
Mm.
I got a point here. So I'm a big proponent of like Lane Norton, Miguel, and Marcos. I don't know what your thoughts on this are. I've never talked to you about this, but he always goes like, there's no scientific data for food addiction, right? Like he goes like, there's no random like I'm like, okay, but
But he also says too, like, the hardest thing to actually randomly control is
yeah,
a metabolic ward study. And then, like, again, if we just use life as our, I guess it's, what is it, ad libitum, right? Like, just like
yeah,
as you exist, or whatever that term is. Obviously, the percentages are overweight and obese by a long shot. Like,
yeah.
you can literally pick up,
70%.
I pick up 10 people off the street, 7 out of 10 of them are obese, right? Like, or overweight. What I mean, even just from what, I don't know. I guess maybe they may not be from a BMI standpoint at times, but I would venture to say body fat percentage is not in the optimal range for probably almost 100% of them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think why he's trying to always, again, just like you said, RFK Miguel, like, is very nuanced with how he says something. Lane's very much so in the same camp as like making sure that he's stating things in a way that, again, like, is trying to educate, but at the same time, like, not make a claim from himself, right? So he's trying to be really tactful and tasteful in how he says it, but he's like, we'll never be able to get this information necessarily. And what we can say definitively is that when those foods do tend to get incorporated, they can lead to overeating based on what he has seen, right? And we think we all live it, right? Like, I'm gonna have pizza tonight. All right, cool, right? Like, again, in my week, I like to have pizza night, right? Everybody should have the right to have the body autonomy, right? And pick whatever it is that you want to put in, right? But at the same time, the rest of the addictive foods that are in the pantry that we're trying to not replenish for my kids as much, right? More of like the fruits and the veggies and all those things. Like, when they are around, we'll all gravitate towards them. You know, it's like when you do a Whole30, you're like, oh my God, when I had that first bite of the apple after like taking a week off from it, it felt like it was the sweetest thing ever. Like, you know, like Miguel's saying, is like, they became so good at like just hijacking, creating this like oral drug in a sense that you're just like, it's like, have you ever eaten just one potato chip?
no, bro.
You know, like, even if you're getting one that's healthier, dude, popcorners, crack, straight up crack. It's like you can take popcorn and turn it into this crunchy chip. And I think also too, part of the marketing or the sell on particular foods too that we hijack is that like psychological approach to it, right? You're like, this is only 110 calories. It's 50 calories less, but you're still going to mow down the whole fucking bag. Like, that used to be me. I would get to my high carb day. I would have an entire bag of popcorners on a Sunday about 5 years ago. And I was like, why did I do that again? And it's just like the salt, the crunch, the this, the that. And then they have kettle corn ones. I mixed the 2 bags. It's like game over.
Game over, Marcos.
But it's, yeah. I mean, when they brought that up, because I think they talk about that in a couple of their most recent interviews for whatever podcast they were on, plus like in their book, they're talking about how, you know, yeah, how that transfer over from tobacco scientist over to food scientist and food addiction stuff. Like, I mean, we're all in the trenches dealing with people that deal with that. I mean, I still deal with it personally, you know, this like, damn, I really want this thing, but I'm like, I know that'll lead to, that's like a trigger, you know, like that might lead me down just a little bit of a binging behavior, and I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But also too, that food is available, right? And like, and it's not regulated in a sense, but it's regulated elsewhere, dude. Like, why? Is it all
Why
for
is it that?
profits? Why
Yeah,
is
why is
America just the
that?
profit center for the rest of the world? Like, I know that we're the debt center for the rest of the world, and we sell our debt to other countries because they know they're going to we have to make our interest payments, right? And then that's like our our GDP is literally fucking human debt, like, which is a problem. Like, God, I mean,
Now we're getting into the
but
weeds, brother.
it's all a health related thing, right?
It is. It is. Yeah,
Call right
yeah.
before I got onto this with you guys. The person who decided that he was going to take a break with coaching with me about a year ago came back. I asked him, "Hey, did you ever get started with your nursing classes that you wanted to do?" He's like, "No, I never got to it." But a couple weeks back into just getting his training in order and talking about food and having someone to report to for accountability, he had an appointment today. I was like, "What's your appointment?" He's like, "Oh, I'm actually touring the school for my nursing class finally." I was like, "It's funny how when you're taking care of your health, you actually go after those things that you say that you're going to do." So I
Health is
think
a
that, like,
foundation, man.
yeah, you don't feel good, you're not going to want to do it. And I mean, I had a conversation with a physician today. He's like, "What makes you want to go do this hard thing of like working out every day?" It's like, I don't know. I enjoy it. Like, he's like, "I wish I could enjoy working out like you do." He like flat out said it. I was like, "Yeah, but you're successful in other ways." He's like, "Yeah, but the one thing I do struggle with is just trying to get out and go to get like something healthy in order." And I'm like, damn, that's weird. It's like, it's weird that this dude is I mean, I think he had private jet money. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, "Yeah, I have 50 other physicians that work under me." And it's like, yeah, but like, like you just have this contrasting different thing. And even he, as a physician, was saying like, "I don't want people to worry about medicine anymore. We only go to school for medicine. I want my practitioners that I actually, I want them to know the people that they're getting. I want them to get to know the people." He's a pain management specialist. So he has a bunch of pain management practices across California. And I found that super interesting. He's like, "Man, this guy is like, he's getting to people at like a deeper philosophical level." So Seamus, when I sent that text earlier, like he was being philosophical about like deep shit. It was like, literally, I was like, you sound like you're into stoicism. He's like, "Absolutely." Into
Yeah.
these deeper thoughts and getting to know people. And I was like, dude, this is uncanny that this conversation with him today. We also talked about things about like relationship stuff, which was really important because that's been a theme for me the last couple of days. And then I'm having this conversation with Miguel, right? So it's funny in all
Philosophy
these.
pursuit. Yeah, it's exemplified in a country, right? Philosophy is a country in practice, right? So,
Oh
makes a
yeah,
lot of sense.
but I think the
Um,
biggest thing I took away, dude, like I've literally had to turn off social media today because everything I would see was literally people that lost saying, "Well, at least we're doing it gracefully." I was like, dude, you have 12 stories that are you bitching about the fact that the result wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just took to a different medium. The people that were on the right, they were just like, "Hey, we're going to go storm the Capitol because that's our God-given right." And the people on the left was like, "I'm going to go to social media and bitch about it because that's my God-given right." And thank you, Meta, for having this platform for me to bitch about it. World, man.
yeah.
I have a lot to say about everything, but okay.
I feel it, Marcos. You've
I'm
been
gonna shut up.
downloading too much.
I'm gonna shut up for a minute. I'll let you guys chat a bit more.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention that is not RFK related, but it's a really beautiful thing when science is finally either listened to or been brought up to court case or to cases in court, because that's how we can see real change. And I've always known that there's a lot of problems with like fluoride.
The
You know,
water.
in the water, it doesn't need to be in there. Dentists still use it because I'm sure it hardens teeth, but it has other effects to the body. In my state, or in our state here in California, um, Judge Edward Chang, who is a district court, who is in the district court of Northern California, he actually just ruled the EPA to eliminate fluoride, or is telling the companies who are putting fluoride into the water, or the municipal systems. I always get that one wrong. Municipal systems to replace the fluoride out of the water, because it's lowering, provenly through research, is lowering children's IQs. So this is actually something that's amazing that's happening in our state of California.
Perfect.
Just forcing the EPA to do something about fluorinated waters, because the science is completely showing that it is lowering children's IQs, and
We need that
can't do that.
reverse osmosis, red light, hyperoxygenated water, dude. That's what we need.
We need fucking beautiful water from the mountains, anywhere we can get it, man.
But you got to understand. So here's something that's crazy, okay? And this is going to be the part where, even though we change this, companies still have a lot of power with water. This is the crazy thing. California, man. What is California known to grow? What is California known to grow? Miguel, you know this one?
To grow marijuana? I don't know. But
almonds. And they used way too much fucking water as a result and steal it from fucking Lake Mead.
So what happens is there is tons of water coming up.
I'm fucking with you.
Yeah, there's tons of water coming up from like Canada or like all this good water, but we're not getting it as the municipality or all this stuff because these companies have to distribute it elsewhere. And there have been cases of like water just needing to go to different companies just because they have these contracts. So you have to like, it's weird that like we're like, you're talking about this change, very positive, but then still on the backside, there's still going to be ways for that change not to be fully initiated the way we think we want it to be, kind of like in this harmonious way. There's powers that be, man. It's kind of crazy. So still got to watch out.
No, 100%, dude.
I heard that there was a lot of water that was diverted from particular spots in like from Northern California to more like coastal cities for like from freshwater resources, right?
Yeah, there was something like that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I'm just like with my clients daily. I love when I have information that is irrefutable. Working in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles or whatever. I have found it more that I don't know why, but typically folks that are in this area typically will not want to accept the fact that everything is okay. Like, your food's fucked up, your water's fucked up, your school system's fucked up, your head's in your ass. So when I have, good, clear evidence, I bring this up to every single client. That way they could I can slowly start to show them the world they're living in that they're blind to, that's making them unhealthy. Yeah. And slowly with evidence show them how I've been keeping myself healthy by mostly avoiding things. I mean, you can put anything in. You do a lot of
work by just avoiding things.
Dude, most of this shit is just avoiding bullshit food, bullshit drugs, and a bullshit environment and mindsets, right? So I'm just slowly trying to implement that into my clients' lives so they can slowly heal themselves by changing the perspective. Because some people just don't see. They're actors, they're business owners, they're agents. They don't know anything else besides I gotta hustle and keep up with the Joneses or give my kids a good education.
No, dude. Well, I appreciate what you say that, because I was actually thinking about this on the way here. Like, I had like an hour-long drive to get to Beverly Hills this morning, and I was just driving, and I was just thinking, I was like, my job, if I were to ask about, because we're talking about RFK, like about these health things and Make America Healthy Again, like my answer to that is like, whoever is in office, whoever runs the health systems, even though the environment may not be the most pristine environment, my job isn't being this advocate. I'm not a policy guy. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not a person I don't have that capability. Maybe not yet. Who knows? I might run for office 2028. Just vote. But what I'm saying is, what I teach Marcos and what we teach our clients is like, look, like where are you at? Here's your goal. Here's how we get there, and here's how we have to manage our environment, our community, our culture. And it's helping them navigate all those different components and realizing like, look, we're not going to have control of water. We're not going to have control of, if the FDA makes another company wants a sugary food, like we don't have control of those things that are on the market. What we have control over is our behavior, and that behavior changes, two things. It's going to be compassion. It's being able to be compassionate with the person, realizing like, huh, maybe they're just not educated enough, they're not motivated enough, or they just are struggling. And then two, it's like accountability. They want change, so you got to keep them accountable to that change. You know, they're making the same decision over and over again. Hey, we got to make a different decision for you to make the outcome you want.
And that's why my podcast is called Good Demand. Good demand literally means you're demanding things that are good, right? We're demanding things economically that fit our values, that are healthy, that are cradle to cradle, meaning they can be compostable, they don't cause junk, they don't harm other people, they don't harm ourselves, they don't harm our fellow animal species on the planet. We have to demand good things economically so that we don't destroy ourselves and we don't destroy our planet at the same time.
Man, I like that. Good demand. Well, it's funny because you brought up the kid thing, and I most recently learned about like that had actually passed a voucher program for education for kids, so you can kind of pick and choose if you want to put your kid in a private school, or basically, like, in my eyes, like, well, if every school was kind of like a business, wouldn't you want all the teachers to actually have outcomes that would be desirable, right? And then there were particular people that actually went and like helped defund the actual like funding of the voucher system plan in Nevada. And wow. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, like that's interesting, right? Like, I mean, it kind of boils down to, I think, society as a whole. It's a lot of just like participation ribbons and trophies being given out, whereas like I want my kids to work for it and earn it, and I want meritocracy to prevail at the end of the day. I remember being brought up and saying like, the only way I'm going to get anywhere is to like prove my worth. I mean, I spent 7 years not getting a B from middle school all the way through high school, for what? Like at the end of the day, like when it came to actually getting some money and trying to go to like a better school, it shit didn't even matter that I had that much on my plate. My test scores weren't good enough. And I didn't get like any additional funding because my parents were educators or teachers, and there was no money for me from FAFSA. Damn. The system's been broken for a long time. You know what I mean? And again, like now getting a little more educated in how certain things work, completely legal, by the way, right? Like I'm just learning how to operate with the particular game that everybody else has to learn how to play. You don't get an education in that, unfortunately. But, I feel like if we did that, right, merit-based society, no more things about like DEI, right? Like at the end of the day, everybody's diverse. I'm 2 different cultures in one. Seamus is 2 or 3 different cultures in one. Miguel, how many different cultures are you?
Just one. I'm somehow pure Mexican. Makes no sense.
All right. So we effectively have a ton of Latin influence here because Seamus, you're practically Latin because you're Filipino.
Dude, Spanish, Spain conquered our country like a million times. So yeah,
right. So like we're all part of that, but I think we'd all agree is like, granted, I know I like to check that box because I think it might get me something a little bit more. In some cases, it does. Like I can have a minority-owned business, quote unquote. I might be able to get some additional funding. But at the end of the day, I'm like, right now my next goal is to make enough money so I can actually get like a loan that a bank would provide me. But I mean, it's pretty steep to just even get some funding from a bank. It's like, yeah, if you're not doing $250,000 a year, you're not going to get an SBA loan. I was like, I thought the whole idea behind an SBA loan was to get you started to try to make your first $250,000.
Oh, the banks, man, the banks.
Yeah. They're like, no, that's what their credit card's for. You're going to have to pay 45% interest for a while. I was like, well, so much for taking risks,
Right. Like the risk that you want to take in terms of like your business, which is like a health coaching business. It's like, dude, I want to make America healthy again, but I can't,
Yeah, because I want, and again, if I had that money, I would try to provide jobs for other people that could help me grow that, help with like, again, the video editing or again, like the social media stuff and things that like, again, one person really can't do on their own in this ever evolving landscape. And I mean, again, like going back to the school, why I brought it up is like each one of those schools could have its own little niche, just like every health coach has its own niche within a niche, right? That's what they tell us at, whenever you're trying to create your first funnel. Who are you marketing to? Who are you marketing to, bro? Again, who was Robert Kennedy marketing to with Make America Healthy Again? He's talking to everybody, because we know that we have this crisis and all of us fall into this fucking niche of like, we can all be a little bit healthier. And what do those initiatives look like? Again, regulations on what's being added in the food, what can and cannot be added, right? Again, more bodily autonomy, where you can choose peptide therapy over traditional medicine. Hopefully that all the medicines that we choose to incorporate, because they can be life-saving, have some sort of synergy. I feel like physicians probably need a better understanding of nutritional education, because they get one class typically, if they're lucky, in med school, right? There's so many things that could just really help things. And hell, that's why I'm always appreciative of what we do, Seamus. Is like, we're trying to do the right thing. I still think that we need to find another way to help with that level of influence for like health coaches in addition to physician, because physicians have so much more clout. That doctor, that MD at the end of the name, can immediately disregard anything you may have said to help people and, getting them started,
No, dude. I think, well, that's where, Miguel, sorry, I think we kind of hijacked the conversation here for a second, but I think that's where like this board of health and wellness coaches, like, I think that's where they're finally getting into the clinical game even better, right, Marcos? And it's still relatively new that we as these folks can actually come in there finally and go, hey, we're not just support. We're not just this one other part of a clinical team. We can really go out there and take more of a load, not just to support certain aspects, but to actually take on elsewhere. And we could really help those professionals come up and take the burden off of a registered dietitian, or maybe take the burden off of a physical therapist, take the burden off of a physician, right? And be able to play in that realm with them. And I think I think it takes some more rigor, like scientific rigor, like Miguel was talking about, but I also think it needs the landscape. We need the landscape to open up. And I think, Marcus, if we can be part of that, like being able to educate the next level set of people, I think that's going to help, the clinical background, the people that are working day to day, just get healthier.
I agree. And I think too, like the idea of, using these slogans of like, again, it's like kind of like a flashback. You think of those photos at the beaches, right? Because I feel like that's kind of the analogy in my head that I'm always juxtaposing. Here's 1950. Here's 2020. Here's you at the beach. Here's what America looked like. The video I think I saw from Robert Kennedy's page today, or someone reposted it, was people doing pegboards, going up it. And you know what I mean? It's like, dude, like, as part of school, this is another huge problem, and this is a funding issue. And why, like, if there was like, if I was going to have to pay more tax for my property, the first thing I would want it to do is to ensure that my kid gets recess every single day. Because as it stands right now, my son in first grade has 1 day a week, and he doesn't even get it next week, 1 day a week where he gets to go outside before school for 15 to 20 minutes. You don't think that influences his education in some way, shape, or form?
Damn.
That's wild.
I know. And it's because they're understaffed. Not to mention, they also had a budgeting issue, which I think Elon will do a good job of maybe fixing. They had to fire staff members from different schools in our district because they overstaffed it, and the money ran out. It's like, that's our taxpayer dollars that ran out because, like, in Las Vegas, right? They misappropriated funds and didn't put it in the right place. So my son gets 2 days of PE. He gets only 30 minutes to eat his food and then go play, right? My kid can't be a kid.
Dang, bro.
I know. And again, like, I know I'm a little bit in a different spot than you guys, but like, when you brought that up as like one of the core things, Miguel, like, it is a really core thing. It's a real core issue. Especially, it really resonates with me because I'm like, again, as the health coach, the number one thing that kids could be doing, they're going to learn the stuff. Technology's everywhere, right? They're not having a problem with learning. They're having a problem just being a fucking kid, They don't even have the opportunity to go do health, like, quote unquote, health related things. Is it healthy to be sitting down at a desk and learning all this time? How much time can you actually truly invest into reading a book? Even one you're interested in, right? And again, then they're talking about, oh, he's ADD. It's like, well, yeah, maybe part of it is the food,
Yeah.
but the other part of it is probably just there's no outlet.
Yeah, it's just no outlet.
Yeah,
No
little
outlet.
animals, dude. They're legit little animals that need to be outside and play and climb and get in the sun and fall.
I
Yeah.
think, is it Sweden? Sweden has like the least amount of school hours, but like the number one, like one of the international countries has like, again, better retention rates in terms of like material that they understand, and they spend most of their day playing.
Huh, sick.
Well, so I had a person who has when I was in my undergrad, I was working with someone who's getting his PhD in information, how people get information. He was saying one of the best things to get information is you either play, then you study, or if you study, you make sure you got to play or hang out with a friend. And that he was saying, like based off the research and study, that's how it solidifies in your brain, the knowledge. And I was like, so we did a study session. He showed us like some physiology. And he's like, all right, we're gonna go play now. So we went to the rock climbing wall at Seaside. And he's like, all right, cool.
Nice.
And he was right. Like I felt like that was a component that like I keep in my knowledge. Like you can't study without doing like a form of like movement or play after, and I just keep that around. It was cool to get that from a guy that was actually doing a PhD in like all this stuff, knowledge or like education. It's crazy.
Very nice.
Yeah, they show that with ADD kids and doing CrossFit sessions, like a 15-minute CrossFit WOD before doing math. Like their retention went through the roof, even though they were clinically diagnosed with ADD.
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
their prefrontal alpha cortex and their theta beta ratio is probably like locked in.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about like all the studies that could potentially be done as a result of like EEG technology and other technologies. And again, like
Yeah.
red light therapies. And I know, Miguel, you were talking about like there's certain things that you have subjective benefit from. The studies may not be out for it yet, but you know that you feel better as a result of the red light therapy and everything else that you're doing. And that means a lot.
That is itself is weight in gold, you know? That
Yeah. I mean,
anecdotal.
one of the most successful drugs of all time is placebo.
Yeah.
Is it every study?
73% effective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like this pursuit of the next phase as we sit here on November 7th, going into the new year, like I'm interested to see how it all pans out and if certain things will come to fruition. It's not even so much like a money thing. I think it's a principle thing. I think that just like America needs more alignment with things that, again, isn't cutting into our lifespan anymore. Because I know that we've seen that kind of slip in the last few decades, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, even with all the conventional medicine and therapies and all these things that are going on, we're finding a way to not be healthy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my eye on it, especially now that RFK will be in the White House. I will be keeping up with every single move that is made to the spider web of this system,
Yeah.
and trying to make sure we can, at least I can map it out for myself and understand it, and then sharing that with other people.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing that on Good Demand. You can follow that on Instagram. And yeah, that's my plan, to just make sure I can document every single little step that is taken to reconstruct the broken system we've had. I don't even know how long we've had this broken system.
Dude, well, I'm happy that you're one of the folks doing it with the good demand. I think this conversation was great. Whether you're left or right, I think health is still a forefront. That's why I really don't care politics too much for me. I just want the person I'm working with to be healthy. And I think we need an environment to do that. I think we need the community to do that. We need regenerative farming. We need pharmaceuticals to look at, but then to have the rigor to go, look, we're not going to delete these things. I don't think it's about just completely delete. It's being able to look at that scientific rigor, the interpretation, to be like, okay, what does fit in moving human biology forward in a safe way, still using these same components or parts of them. But Miguel, we're over an hour. I want to make sure we're all set. Miguel, where can people find you? Anything else they should find about you, man?
You can find me pretty much anywhere on YouTube, Instagram, Good Demand, gooddemand.org. And my personal account is Miguel Felix Jr. That's just my personal stuff. That's me being a human, so that's not my professional life. But if you want to see me as a person, there I am.
Good shit, man. Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for opening my eyes and getting me fired up about something today. I love it.
It's been a while since Marcos has been super fired up on a pod.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Like, again, I don't.
Lives are going to change. Hopefully, that's literally what's hopefully going to happen. Our country is going to change completely in health.
And I'll definitely be listening to that, man. Like, I love that you're going to document it. I don't know if you have like a specific like section in YouTube where you would just have a series like that, but
That'd be great. Yeah.
I would love that personally. So if that's like a tidbit of something like, hey, like the spider web theory or whatever it is, or like the, however that infiltrated system looks like, make it easy to find, because I feel like I would probably listen to it in chunks. Like, all right, cool. Like, here's how that progression had looked. I'm kind of like a podcast listener like that, like kind of finding themes and kind of like sticking to it for a while. And so I'm excited to see what that turns into, man, because obviously it seems like you're invested in it. I think more people need to be. And dude, thank you for your time. Like
Thank
Seamus
you guys
said,
so much. Appreciate you guys are smart guys, so appreciate it.
we try to be, but yeah, man,
I'll forget about this later.
no, we'll definitely be able to listen, and we'll have everything linked up in the show notes, everybody. Obviously you'll be able to see all those things there. Get over to his page, nice and easy, pages rather. And dude, again, thank you for your time. And until next time, Macro's Perspective peeps, we're all out. So see you then.